grocery store in Millbrook, Texas was supposed to be a safe place. That's what Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez told herself every Tuesday morning when she pushed her cart through those automatic doors. After 3 tours in Afghanistan, after everything she'd seen and done, a small-town supermarket should have been the easiest mission of her life. But some battles follow you home. Rachel gripped the cart handle and began her slow walk toward the produce section. Her left leg dragged slightly with each step. The limp was more pronounced in the morning, especially when the Texas humidity pressed down like a weight. She'd learned to ignore the stares. Most people in Millbrook meant no harm. They just didn't know what to make of the 32-year-old woman with the military posture and the uneven gait. "Morning, Rachel," called out Mrs. Henderson from behind the bakery counter. The older woman's smile was genuine, but her eyes always drifted down to Rachel's leg. That look of pity, Rachel had seen it 1,000 times since she'd moved here 6 months ago. "Morning, ma'am," Rachel replied, keeping her voice steady and pleasant. She'd perfected that tone. Polite but distant. Friendly but not inviting questions. She was examining the tomatoes when she heard them. 3 men in their 20s standing by the beer display at the end of the aisle. Construction workers by the look of their dusty clothes and work boots. They weren't trying to be quiet. "Check out the gimp," one of them said, nudging his friend. "Bet she's collecting disability for some made-up injury." Rachel's hand tightened on the tomato she was holding. The fruit began to give under her grip. She carefully set it down and selected another, keeping her back to them. "Probably never even served." Another voice added, "You know how many people fake military service these days? Stolen valor everywhere," the third one laughed. "My cousin's in the army. Says half the women there just push papers and complain about everything. Then they come back acting like heroes." Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, breathed in through her nose, out through her mouth. The technique Dr. Summers had taught her. Count to 5, let it go. They don't know. They can't know. She placed 3 tomatoes in her cart and moved on to the lettuce. Her legs screamed with each step, but she kept her face neutral. Never show weakness. That was the first rule of survival, whether in combat or in a grocery store. But the men followed her. Not obviously. They pretended to shop, grabbing random items, but she could feel their eyes on her. 20 years of military training had taught her to always be aware of her surroundings. These boys thought they were being clever. They had no idea they were stalking someone who'd survived Taliban ambushes. "Hey, excuse me," one of them called out. "The biggest one." There was always a biggest one. "You need help reaching that?" He pointed to a box of cereal on a high shelf, even though Rachel hadn't been looking at cereal. "I'm fine, thank you," she said without turning around. "You sure? That leg looks like it gives you trouble. What happened? Trip over your cat?" His buddies snickered behind him. Rachel finally turned to face them. She took in their positions automatically. 3 targets. The big one in front, 6 feet 2 inches, maybe 220 pounds. The one on the left was smaller but had fighter's hands, scarred knuckles. The one on the right was drunk. She could smell the beer on him from 6 feet away, even though it was only 10 in the morning. "I said I'm fine," she repeated, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded Marines in combat. The big one stepped closer. "Just trying to be helpful. That's what's wrong with this country. No gratitude anymore, especially from people gaming the system." "Brad, come on," the smaller one said, sensing something in Rachel's posture. "Let's go," but Brad wasn't done. "You know what I think? I think you're one of those fake veterans. Probably bought that army jacket at a surplus store. Never served a day in your life, but you limp around town looking for sympathy and handouts." Rachel almost corrected him. It wasn't an army jacket. It was Marines. But she stayed silent, her hands relaxed at her sides. She'd learned long ago that the most dangerous people never telegraph their capabilities. "Nothing to say?" Brad pushed. "Yeah, that's what I thought. Stollenballer. It's disgusting. Real heroes died for this country, and people like you—" "Brad." A sharp voice cut through the tension. Tom Bailey, the store manager, appeared at the end of the aisle. He was a Vietnam veteran himself, old enough to be Brad's grandfather. "You boys need to leave now." "We're paying customers," Brad protested. "Not anymore. Get out of my store." The 3 men grumbled but started walking toward the exit. Brad turned back one more time. "Better watch yourself, Gimpy. This is a small town. People talk." After they left, Tom approached Rachel. His eyes were kind but concerned. "You okay, Rachel?" "I'm fine, Mr. Bailey. He studied her for a moment. Tom had asked her once about her service. She'd given him the bare minimum. Marine Corps, 3 tours, medical discharge. He'd never pushed for more, and she appreciated that. Those boys don't know anything about anything, he said. Brad's been a problem since high school. His daddy owns the construction company, so he thinks he owns the town. Rachel nodded. It's fine, really, but it wasn't fine. As she finished her shopping and drove home to her small apartment, she felt the familiar weight settling on her chest. Not fear, never fear. It was something else. The exhaustion of carrying a secret that was simultaneously her greatest pride and her heaviest burden. Her apartment was sparse but clean. Military habits died hard. She put away her groceries and sat down at her kitchen table, her leg throbbing from the morning's exertion. The prescription bottle of painkillers sat on the counter, but she didn't reach for them. She'd seen too many veterans fall into that trap. Instead, she opened her laptop and checked her email. There it was, the message she'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure, from Colonel James Harrison, her former commanding officer. Rachel, the ceremony is in 2 weeks. SecDef will be there. You can't skip this one. Your country wants to thank you properly. The men you saved will all be there. They need to see you, please. She closed the laptop without responding. The Purple Heart was one thing. She'd accepted that in the hospital, when she could barely stay conscious long enough to receive it. But this new medal, the one they wanted to give her in a public ceremony, that was different. That would mean standing in front of cameras and crowds. That would mean everyone knowing. Her phone buzzed. A text from her physical therapist, confirming tomorrow's appointment. Then another buzz. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her open it. Saw what happened at Bailey's today. You should know Brad's telling everyone you're a fake. Planning something for the Veterans Memorial fundraiser on Friday. Thought you should have a heads up. A friend. Rachel stared at the message. The fundraiser. She'd forgotten about that. The whole town would be there, gathering at the community center to raise money for the new memorial in the park. She'd planned to skip it, make some excuse about not feeling well, but now Brad was planning something. She could ignore a lot of things, but if he was going to make a scene at an event honoring veterans, that was different. Those events weren't about her. They were about the men and women who never made it home. She stood up, ignoring the pain in her leg, and walked to her bedroom closet. In the back, behind the civilian clothes she wore every day, hung her dress blues. She hadn't worn them since the medical discharge ceremony. The medals were still in their box on the shelf. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and the letter confirming the Navy Cross waiting for her to accept it publicly. 12 lives. That's what the citation said. 12 Marines alive today because Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez had run through enemy fire, already wounded, to drag them out of a burning vehicle after an IED explosion. The second explosion, the one that caught her in the open, had filled her left leg with so much shrapnel that the doctor said it was a miracle she could walk at all. But Brad and his friends didn't know that. The town didn't know that. And part of her wanted to keep it that way. Heroes in movies got parades and applause. Heroes in real life got survivors' guilt and nightmares about the ones they couldn't save. Her phone rang. Colonel Harrison. She let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. This time a number she recognized. Danny Chen, one of the 12. He called every week, even though she rarely answered. This time she picked up. Staff Sergeant? His voice was young, eager. He'd been 19 during the ambush. Just a kid from California who'd joined up straight out of high school. I'm not your staff sergeant anymore, Danny. You'll always be staff sergeant to me. Listen, I heard about the ceremony. We're all coming. Martinez, Johnson, Williams, Thompson, all of us. Even Brooks is flying in from Seattle. Rachel sat down on her bed. Danny, you saved our lives. Do you understand that? 12 families got their sons and husbands and fathers back because of you. My daughter just turned 2. She exists because of what you did. The weight in her chest grew heavier. I did my job. No, his voice was firm now. No, you did more than that. And we're going to be there when they recognize it, whether you like it or not. After she hung up, Rachel sat in the silence of her apartment. Through her window, she could see downtown Millbrook. Such a small place. Such small problems. But even small problems could fester if left untreated. She thought about Brad and his friends. About the fundraiser. About the ceremony in 2 weeks. About the 12 Marines who were organizing themselves to come to Texas. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to let the truth have its day. But first, she had to get through Friday night. Friday came too fast. Rachel stood in front of her bathroom mirror trying to decide what to wear to the fundraiser. Not the dress blues. That would be too much, too obvious. But not her usual worn jeans and flannel shirt either. She settled on black slacks and a simple blue button-down shirt. Respectable but unremarkable. The kind of outfit that let you blend into a crowd. Her phone had been buzzing all day. Danny and the others were driving in from Fort Hood, where they'd gathered to surprise her. She'd tried to talk them out of it, but Marines don't abandon their own. That's what Danny had said. Once a Marine, always a Marine. She'd finally responded to Colonel Harrison asking him to postpone the ceremony. Just a few more weeks. She wasn't ready for that spotlight. First, she had to get through tonight. The Millbrook Community Center was already packed when Rachel arrived. She'd timed it carefully. Not too early, not too late. Early meant too much time for small talk. Late meant making an entrance. She wanted neither. The center was decorated with American flags and red, white, and blue streamers. Photos of local veterans lined the walls. Men and women from every generation. From World War II to the current conflicts. Rachel recognized some faces. Tom Bailey in his Army uniform from 1969. Sheriff Williams from Desert Storm. Even Brad's grandfather who'd served in Korea. That's what made Brad's attitude even worse. He came from a family that should have known better. Rachel got herself a cup of punch and found a spot near the back wall. From here she could see everything. Old habit. Always know your exits. Always watch for threats. Rachel Martinez? She turned to find Mayor Patricia Hughes approaching. The woman was in her 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. She'd been running Millbrook for 15 years. Mayor Hughes, Rachel nodded. I'm so glad you came. I know these events can be difficult for our recent veterans. There was something in the mayor's tone, a knowing quality. Rachel wondered how much she'd heard about the incident at the grocery store. It's a good cause, Rachel said simply. Yes, it is. You know, my son is stationed at Fort Bragg, 3rd deployment coming up. The mayor's voice carried a mother's worry. Every time he leaves, I think about the families who didn't get their children back. And I think about the ones who came back different. Rachel didn't respond, but she didn't need to. The mayor continued. Tom Bailey told me what happened Tuesday. Those boys were out of line. It's handled, is it? The mayor looked across the room to where Brad and his friends had just entered. They were already loud. Already drinking beer someone had smuggled in despite the no alcohol policy. Brad's been spreading stories all week, saying you're a fraud, saying he's going to expose you tonight. Rachel's jaw tightened. Let him talk. You know, I made some calls after Tom told me about the incident. To Fort Hood. They wouldn't tell me much. Privacy rules and all that. But they did say you were the real deal. More than that, actually. The person I spoke to said you were a genuine hero who refused to let anyone know it. Before Rachel could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Brad's voice carried across the room. There she is. The fake soldier. The room began to quiet. People turned to look. Brad was walking toward them, his friends flanking him like they were some kind of gang. His face was flushed. He'd been drinking before arriving. Brad Thompson, this is not the place, Mayor Hughes said firmly. This is exactly the place, Brad shot back. A fundraiser for real veterans, and we've got someone here stealing valor. Limping around town, pretending she's some kind of war hero. Rachel remained still, her hands relaxed at her sides. She could feel the room's attention shifting to her. Some faces showed concern, others curiosity, and a few showed doubt. Small towns were built on gossip, and Brad had been feeding that machine all week. You've got no proof of service, Brad continued, getting closer. I checked online. There's no Rachel Martinez in any database. That's because you don't have access to real databases, Tom Bailey said, stepping forward. Sit down, boy, before you embarrass yourself more than you already have. I'm not embarrassed. She's the one who should be embarrassed, playing on people's sympathy with that fake Limp. That's when Rachel noticed movement by the door. Danny Chen entered first, followed by 11 other Marines in civilian clothes. They were all young, all fit, all moving with the controlled purpose of trained warriors. Danny spotted her immediately and started crossing the room. But Brad was too focused on his performance to notice. You know what I think? I think you're just some woman who washed out of basic training. Probably hurt yourself falling off an obstacle course and decided to milk it for the rest of your life. Stop talking. Rachel's voice was quiet but carried a weight that made Brad pause. Or what? You'll limp at me aggressively? A few people laughed nervously. Most looked uncomfortable. This wasn't what they'd come for tonight. Brad, that's enough, Sheriff Williams said, moving through the crowd. You're drunk and you're being disrespectful. Disrespectful? She's the one disrespecting every real veteran in this room. Danny and the other Marines had formed a loose semicircle behind Rachel without her asking. She could feel their presence solid and reassuring. Danny stepped forward. Excuse me, he said, his voice carrying California sunshine and steel. Are you talking about Staff Sergeant Martinez? Brad looked at the newcomers with confusion. Who the hell are you? Lance Corporal Danny Chen, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Danny's introduction was followed by 11 others, each Marine stating their name and unit. The room had gone completely silent. We're here to see our Staff Sergeant, Danny continued. The woman who saved our lives in Afghanistan 18 months ago. Brad's face went pale, but he tried to rally. You're probably all in on it. Some kind of scam. That's when Master Sergeant Johnson, a mountain of a man from Alabama, laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Boy, you just called 12 United States Marines liars. That's a mistake. Tell them what happened, Brad challenged, looking at Rachel. If you're such a hero, tell everyone what you did. Rachel finally moved, stepping forward slightly. The crowd seemed to hold its breath. No, she said simply. See? She can't because it never happened. I won't tell them, Rachel continued, because it's not about me. Tonight is about raising money for a memorial. It's about honoring the ones who didn't come home. It's not about my service or your ego. Your service, Brad scoffed. You mean your lies. Danny started forward, but Rachel held up a hand, stopping him without looking back. You really want to know? She asked Brad. You really want to know how I got this limp? Yeah, I do. And so does everyone else. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady, almost detached, like she was reading a report. August 15th, 2022. Highway 7 outside Kandahar. Our convoy hit an IED. The lead vehicle was disabled. 12 Marines trapped inside. The fuel tank was leaking. Enemy fighters had the position zeroed for mortar fire. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. I was in the third vehicle, already hit by shrapnel from the initial blast. Left leg, left shoulder. But the men in that lead vehicle had 90 seconds, maybe less, before the mortar started falling or the fuel tank exploded. She took a step closer to Brad. Her limp was pronounced, but somehow it made her seem more dangerous, not less. I ran, through open ground, no cover, enemy fire coming from 3 positions, reached the vehicle and started pulling Marines out. One by one. The gunner was unconscious. Had to cut him free from his harness. Brad had backed up a step, got 7 out before the mortar started hitting, kept going. Number 8 was Corporal Martinez. No relation, just same last name. Both his legs were broken. Carried him 40 meters to cover. Another step forward. Brad backed up again. Went back for the last 4. That's when the second IED went off. Command detonated. They'd been waiting. Shrapnel tore through my left leg. Severed nerves, damaged muscles, left metal pieces the doctors couldn't remove without risking paralysis. Her voice never changed. Never rose. Somehow that made it worse, but I got them out. All 12 alive. And when the medevac came, I made them take the others first. By the time they got to me, I'd lost enough blood that they didn't think I'd make it to the field hospital. She stopped directly in front of Brad. But here's the thing you need to understand. I don't care if you believe me. I don't care if you think I'm a hero or a fraud. Your opinion means nothing. But when you disrespect veterans at a veterans fundraiser, when you mock someone's service without knowing the truth, you dishonor every person who ever wore the uniform, including your grandfather. Brad's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Behind Rachel, Danny pulled out his phone. I have video, he said quietly. From my helmet cam. Everything she just described. You want to see what a real hero looks like? You want to see her running through enemy fire with half her leg torn apart? No, Rachel said sharply. Put it away, Danny, but Staff Sergeant. That's an order, Marine. Danny immediately put the phone away. Old habits and respect ran deep. The crowd started murmuring. People were pulling out their own phones, some recording, others texting. Within minutes, everyone in Millbrook would know what had happened here. Brad's friends had abandoned him, melting back into the crowd. He stood alone, face red, eyes darting around looking for support that wasn't coming. I didn't, he stammered. Get out, Sheriff Williams said. Get out of here right now or I'll arrest you for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. Brad fled, practically running for the door. The room stayed quiet for a moment more, then someone started clapping. Slow at first, then joined by others until the entire room was applauding. Rachel stood rigid, uncomfortable with the attention. "Stop," she said, but her voice was drowned out. Mayor Hughes stepped up to the microphone on the small stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just witnessed something important. Not just the truth coming out, but a reminder of what real service looks like. It looks like humility. It looks like sacrifice. It looks like someone who refuses to seek glory for doing what they believe was simply their duty." Rachel turned to leave, but the 12 Marines blocked her path. "You're not running away from this, Staff Sergeant," Danny said. "Not anymore." Rachel stood trapped between the Marines she'd saved and a room full of people who suddenly saw her differently. The weight of their stares pressed down on her worse than any combat gear she'd ever carried. "Danny, move," she said quietly. "Negative, Staff Sergeant. We need to talk. This isn't the Marines anymore. You can't—" "With respect, Staff Sergeant," interrupted Thompson, a stocky Marine from Detroit. "You've been avoiding us for 18 months. Every time we try to visit, you're not home. Every time we call, you don't answer. That ends tonight." The crowd was starting to disperse, giving them space, but Rachel could feel their eyes still on her. People whispered to each other. Phones came out, and she knew that by morning everyone in 3 counties would know what happened here. Tom Bailey approached with a chair. "Rachel, sit. Your leg must be killing you after standing that long." She wanted to refuse, to maintain the image of strength, but the pain was getting worse. The humidity and stress were making it throb. She sat. The 12 Marines immediately pulled chairs into a circle around her. It should have felt like an ambush, but instead it felt like what it was, a protective barrier. "We know about the ceremony," Williams said. "He was older than the others, had a wife and 3 kids back in Missouri. Colonel Harrison told us you keep refusing. It's not necessary." "Not necessary?" Johnson's Alabama drawl got thicker when he was emotional. "Staff Sergeant, do you know what my mama said when she found out what you did? She said she wanted to meet the angel who gave her back her son. I'm no angel." "No," agreed Chen. "You're a Marine, which is better because angels don't run through enemy fire on a torn-up leg." Rachel looked at each of their faces, so young. Most of them weren't even 25 yet. They had their whole lives ahead of them because of 30 seconds of adrenaline and instinct. "You all have families to get back to," she said. "We're not leaving until you agree to the ceremony," Martinez said. The one she'd carried 40 meters with 2 broken legs. He walked fine now, barely even a limp. "We've got a hotel. We've got time." Mayor Hughes approached their circle. "Rachel, can I borrow you for a moment? There's something you need to see." Reluctantly, Rachel stood and followed the mayor to a quiet corner. The mayor pulled out her phone and showed her a video. It was already spreading on social media. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation with Brad. 3,000 views in 20 minutes, the mayor said. "The comments are, well, look." Rachel glanced at the screen. Comments flooded in from around the country. Veterans defending her. People calling Brad every name imaginable. And over the same question. Why doesn't she want recognition? "This is exactly what I didn't want," Rachel said. "I know. But sometimes the world needs to see real heroes, especially now. People are tired of false bravado and stolen valor. You're the real thing and you tried to hide it. That humility is what makes this powerful." Rachel's phone buzzed. "Colonel Harrison." Again. This time she answered. "Martinez, I'm watching the video," he said without preamble. "It's everywhere. My phone's been ringing nonstop. The Secretary of Defense just called. He wants to move the ceremony up. This Sunday. National television." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "Rachel, listen to me. This isn't just about you anymore. The Marine Corps needs this. The country needs this. We need to show people what real courage looks like, what real service means. Find someone else. There is no one else. You ran into enemy fire on a shredded leg and saved 12 Marines. Do you understand how rare that is? The Navy Cross, Rachel. You'll be the first female Marine to receive it in this generation." Rachel closed her eyes. The Navy Cross. Second only to the Medal of Honor. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. "I need time to think." "You have until tomorrow noon. The President wants to present it personally if we move it to Sunday." The President. Rachel ended the call and found herself shaking. Not from fear. She'd faced Taliban fighters and roadside bombs without shaking. This was different. This was visibility. This was having to stand in front of the world and be something she wasn't sure she could be. A symbol. An inspiration. She walked back to the Marines, who were now joined by several local veterans, including Tom Bailey and Sheriff Williams. They were sharing stories, the universal language of military service bridging generational gaps. "There she is," Tom said. "Rachel, I was just telling these boys about the time you helped me fix my roof last month. Climbed up there with that bad leg and worked for 6 hours straight. Mr. Bailey needed help," Rachel said simply. "That's what she always says." Sheriff Williams added, "Someone needs help and she's there. Never asks for anything in return. Hell, she mowed Jim Patterson's lawn all summer when he was going through chemo. Nobody asked her to." Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "People helped me when I came home. I'm just returning the favor." Danny stood up. "Staff Sergeant, can we talk?" Privately, she followed him outside to the parking lot. The Texas night was warm, stars visible despite the town lights. Danny leaned against a truck and studied her. "You know why we're really here?" he asked. "To ambush me into accepting the ceremony?" "No. Well, yes, but that's not the main reason." He pulled out his wallet and showed her a photo. A young Asian woman holding a toddler. "My wife and daughter. May was pregnant when I deployed. I almost didn't get to meet Emma." Rachel said nothing. "Johnson's got 3 boys. Thompson's getting married next month. Williams just made gunnery sergeant. Martinez is starting college on the GI Bill. We all have lives, futures because of what you did." "I did my job." "Stop saying that." Danny's voice cracked. "Do you know what it's like for us? To owe everything to someone who won't even let us say thank you properly? We've been living with this debt for 18 months and you won't let us pay it." "There's no debt, there is. And the only way we can even start to repay it is to stand with you when they give you that medal. To tell the world that Rachel Martinez is the reason we're alive. To make sure everyone knows that when it mattered most, you didn't hesitate." Rachel looked up at the stars. In Afghanistan, they'd been different. Clearer somehow despite the dust and smoke. She'd spent hours on watch, memorizing constellations, thinking about home. "I dream about it," she said quietly. "The ones I couldn't save. Not from our unit, but all the others. The ones who died in other attacks, other places. I got lucky. The IED could have detonated 5 seconds earlier. The mortar could have hit direct. 100 things could have gone different, but they didn't, and that's not luck. That's training, instinct, and courage." A car pulled into the parking lot. An older man got out walking with a cane. As he got closer, Rachel recognized him. Brad's grandfather, Walter Thompson. Korean War veteran. "Mr. Thompson," she said, straightening. He approached slowly, his weathered face grim. "Miss Martinez, I came to apologize for my grandson. That boy's been spoiled his whole life. His daddy's money made him soft and mean. It's not your fault, sir. Maybe not, but I'm ashamed all the same." He shifted his weight on the cane. "I heard what you did. 12 Marines. Under fire. Already wounded." He shook his head. "In Korea, I saw men do brave things. Stupid brave things that got them killed. But what you did, that was smart, brave, calculated. You saved them all and survived. That's rare." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "This was mine. From Chosin Reservoir." He unwrapped it, revealing a bronze star. "I want you to have it." "Sir, I can't." "You can and you will." His voice carried the authority of age and experience. "Because unlike my grandson, you understand what this means. The weight of it. The responsibility." Rachel took the medal with shaking hands. It was worn, the ribbon faded, but perfectly maintained. "There's something else," and Walter said. "Brad's been running his mouth all over town for months about you. But he's also been skimming from his daddy's construction company. Taking money meant for veteran housing projects. I've got proof. Was going to give it to his father, let him handle it quiet-like. But after tonight," he handed her a flash drive. "Sheriff might want to see this. Make sure that money goes where it's supposed to." He turned to leave, then stopped. "That ceremony they want to give you? Take it. Not for you. For them." He gestured to the Marines. "For all of us who understand what it cost. And for the ones who need to see that heroes still exist." After he left, Rachel stood in the parking lot, holding the bronze star and the flash drive. Danny stood beside her, silent. "He's right," Danny finally said. "We need this, all of us. The 12 of us have a group chat. We call ourselves the Lucky Dozen, but we know it wasn't luck. It was you." More cars were arriving. The fundraiser was winding down, but people were coming outside wanting to talk to her, to shake her hand, to apologize for believing Brad's lies. Rachel endured it, smiled, nodded, accepted their thanks. But inside she felt the walls closing in. Sunday, national television, the president, the Navy Cross. Everything she'd tried to avoid was bearing down on her like an incoming mortar round. Thompson appeared at her elbow. "Staff Sergeant, we've got rooms at the Holiday Inn. You're coming with us tonight." No arguments. "Tomorrow we're going to Fort Hood. Colonel Harrison wants to brief you on the ceremony, and you're going to stop fighting this." "That's not your call, Marine. With respect, Staff Sergeant, you're outnumbered 12-1. You taught us to never leave a Marine behind. Well, that works both ways. You're one of us, and we're not letting you face this alone." Rachel looked at the 12 faces surrounding her, young men who'd followed her into hell and back, who trusted her with their lives, who now wanted nothing more than to stand with her one more time. Sheriff Williams approached with the flash drive. "Rachel, Walter Thompson just told me what's on this. We're going to need your help. Brad's been stealing from a fund meant to build housing for homeless veterans. You willing to testify?" Everything was spiraling out of control, from a simple grocery store incident to this, but maybe that's how it was supposed to be. Maybe hiding hadn't been strength. Maybe it had been fear. "Sunday," she said quietly. "I'll do the ceremony Sunday." The 12 Marines erupted in celebration, drawing more attention from the crowd. But Rachel barely heard them. She was thinking about what Walter Thompson had said. Heroes still exist. Maybe it was time to stop running from that responsibility. Tomorrow would bring Fort Hood and Colonel Harrison. Sunday would bring cameras and medals and presidential handshakes. But tonight, surrounded by the men she'd saved and a town that finally saw her, Rachel Martinez allowed herself one moment of peace. She'd carried them out of the fire. Now, maybe it was time to let them carry her into the light. Sunday morning came with a storm. Rachel stood at the window of her Fort Hood quarters watching rain lash against the glass. Fitting weather for a day she'd been dreading. In 3 hours she would stand before the nation and accept a medal she wasn't sure she deserved. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Danny Chen entered with a cup of coffee and a garment bag. "Your dress blues, Staff Sergeant. Had them pressed and cleaned. Made sure all your ribbons are in order." Rachel took the coffee but stared at the garment bag like it contained a live snake. "I can't do this, Danny." "Yes, you can." He hung the bag on the door. "You faced Taliban fighters, IEDs, and Brad Thompson. A ceremony should be easy. Combat is simple. You act or you die. This..." She gestured at the uniform. "This is politics. Symbols. Everything I joined the Marines to avoid." "No, Staff Sergeant. This is duty, just a different kind." Another knock. Colonel Harrison entered without waiting for permission. The man looked tired but determined, his silver hair perfectly groomed despite the early hour. "Martinez, we have a situation." Rachel's stomach dropped. "They're canceling?" "No, the opposite. The video from Friday night has gone completely viral. 20 million views. The Secretary of Defense has been fielding calls all morning. Every major news network wants exclusive interviews. The president moved his entire schedule to be here. I didn't agree to interviews. You don't have to do any. But you need to understand something. This has become bigger than just a medal ceremony. That boy, Brad Thompson, he was arrested yesterday. The evidence Walter Thompson provided showed he'd stolen over $200,000 meant for veteran housing. It's national news. And you're at the center of it." Rachel sank into a chair. "This is exactly what I didn't want." Colonel Harrison's expression softened. "Rachel, I've known you for 8 years. You're the finest Marine I've ever commanded. But you're also the most stubborn. You think accepting recognition makes you less of a warrior. You're wrong. It makes you human. And right now this country needs to see human heroes, not movie fantasies." He pulled out his phone and showed her something. "This is from a girl in Iowa, 16 years old. She wrote that seeing your story made her decide to enlist after high school. This one's from a Vietnam vet in Oregon, who says you reminded him that his service mattered. And this," he scrolled down, "is from the mother of a Marine who died in Syria. She says knowing there are Marines like you watching over others gives her comfort." Rachel's hands shook as she read the messages. Hundreds of them, thousands. "You don't get to be selfish anymore," Harrison said gently. "Your story isn't just yours. It belongs to everyone who needs to believe in something better." 2 hours later, Rachel stood in front of a mirror, her dress blues perfect, her medals aligned precisely. The 12 Marines surrounded her, all in their dress uniforms, all standing at attention. "You look like a warrior," Johnson said. "I look like a fraud." "No," Williams said firmly. "You look like what you are, a United States Marine who did something extraordinary." The ceremony venue was packed. Cameras lined the walls. The president's security detail swept through one more time. Rachel could hear the crowd beyond the curtain. Hundreds of voices. She recognized some. Tom Bailey, Mayor Hughes. Even Walter Thompson had made the drive. Sheriff Williams appeared backstage. "Rachel thought you should know. Brad Thompson pled guilty to all charges this morning. He's looking at 5 years federal time. But here's the interesting part. He asked me to give you this." He handed her a letter. Brad's handwriting was shaky. "Ms. Martinez, I was wrong. About everything. My grandfather told me what real courage looks like, and I finally understood. I'm going to prison, and I deserve it. But when I get out, I'm going to try to be better. To earn the right to live in a country people like you protect. I'm sorry. Brad Thompson." Rachel folded the letter and put it in her pocket. Redemption came in strange forms sometimes. "5 minutes," a stage manager called out. Colonel Harrison appeared. "There's been a change. The president wants to say something first, then the Secretary of Defense. Then we do the presentation. Just remember, when they call you, walk straight, head high. Your leg doesn't define you." "My leg is part of the story," Rachel said. "I'm not hiding it anymore." The curtain opened. Rachel saw the crowd and nearly stepped back. Every seat was filled. Veterans from every generation. Active duty military, civilians, media, and in the front row, 12 families. The parents, spouses, siblings, and children of the Marines she'd saved. Danny's daughter Emma, barely 2 years old, wore a tiny dress with Marine Corps emblems. Johnson's 3 boys sat perfectly still in their Sunday best. Martinez's parents held hands, tears already streaming down their faces. The president took the podium. Rachel had seen him on television 100 times, but in person he looked older, more tired. The weight of command. She understood that weight. "My fellow Americans," he began, "we gather today to honor someone who represents the best of us. But before we do, I want you to understand what happened on August 15th, 2022. A screen behind him came to life, not with Danny's helmet cam footage, but with a tactical map. 12 Marines were trapped in a burning vehicle. Enemy positions here, here, and here. Red dots appeared on the map. The safe approach would have taken 3 minutes. The vehicle had less than 90 seconds. Staff Sergeant Martinez chose a direct route, 50 meters of open ground, no cover. The map showed a blue line crossing directly through the kill zone. She was already wounded from the initial blast. Shrapnel in her leg and shoulder. Military medical experts have reviewed this action. They calculate the chances of success at less than 5%, the chances of survival at less than 2%. He paused, letting that sink in. Staff Sergeant Martinez didn't calculate odds. She saw Marines in danger and acted. 12 times she crossed that open ground. 12 times she defied death. And when the second IED detonated, when her left leg was torn apart by shrapnel, she continued, his voice had risen, carrying emotion rarely shown in public. "This is not a story about war. This is a story about love. The love of a Marine for her brothers. The love that says, I will not let you die. Not on my watch. Not while I can still move." The crowd was silent. Someone in the back was crying. The Secretary of Defense took over, reading the official citation. The words washed over Rachel. Conspicuous gallantry. Above and beyond the call. Complete disregard for personal safety. Then it was time. Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez, front and center. She stood. The 12 Marines stood with her. "We're walking with you," Danny whispered. "Try to stop us." Together they walked onto the stage. Rachel's limp was pronounced, but she didn't try to hide it. It was part of her now. Part of the story. The president held the Navy Cross. The medal gleamed under the lights. "Staff Sergeant Martinez, any words before we proceed?" Rachel hadn't planned to speak. But looking at the crowd, at the families, at the veterans young and old, she realized she had to. She stepped to the microphone. "I've been running from this moment for 18 months, she began. Her voice was steady, carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded in combat. Not from fear, not from modesty, but from guilt. Guilt that I survived when so many others haven't. Guilt that I'm called a hero for doing what any Marine would do." She paused, finding Danny's daughter in the crowd. The little girl waved. But I've learned something this week. Heroes aren't people who feel no fear. They're people who fear the right things. I feared losing my Marines more than I feared dying. That's not heroic. That's human. She looked at Brad Thompson's empty chair. His family was there, heads bowed but present. This medal isn't mine alone. It belongs to every Marine who's ever run toward danger instead of away. It belongs to the families who wait at home, not knowing if we'll return. It belongs to the veterans who came before and showed us the way. Her voice grew stronger. But most of all, it belongs to 12 Marines who trusted me to bring them home, who followed my orders even when those orders seemed insane, who held on when everything was falling apart. They call me a hero, but they're wrong. We're heroes, together. Because that's what Marines do. We fight for each other. We bleed for each other. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get to save each other. She turned to the 12 Marines on stage. So if you want to give me this medal, fine. But know that I wear it for them. For the lucky dozen who made it home. For all the ones who didn't. And for the ones still out there standing watch, keeping the darkness at bay. The president approached with the medal. As he pinned it to her uniform, he whispered something only she could hear. This is why we serve. For people like you. The moment the medal was secured, the crowd erupted. Not just applause, but a standing ovation that seemed to shake the building. The 12 Marines surrounded her. And suddenly she was being hugged, lifted, celebrated by the men she'd saved. Through the crowd, she saw Walter Thompson stand, his old body straightening to attention despite the cane. He saluted. Then Tom Bailey stood and saluted. Then Sheriff Williams. One by one, every veteran in the room rose and rendered honors. Rachel returned the salute, tears finally breaking through her composure. Later, after the ceremony, after the interviews she couldn't avoid, after the handshakes and photos and endless thank yous, Rachel found herself back at her apartment in Millbrook. The medal sat on her kitchen table, still in its presentation case. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from around the world. The president's speech had been broadcast live. Millions of people had watched a small-town woman with a limp accept the Navy Cross. A knock at her door. She opened it to find Danny Chen and the other 11 Marines. We're not leaving yet, Danny said. Tomorrow we're going to help build those veteran houses. The ones Brad's theft delayed. We've got a week of leave and we're going to make sure that project gets done. You don't have to, Staff Sergeant, Williams interrupted. With all due respect, shut up and let us help. Rachel laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in 18 months, the weight on her chest lifted. Fine, but I'm in charge of the work crews. Wouldn't have it any other way, Johnson said. As they discussed plans, Rachel looked at the medal again. Such a small thing to carry such weight. But maybe that's how it was supposed to be. Small acts of courage multiplied became something greater. Her phone rang. An unknown number from Washington, D.C., Ms. Martinez. This is General Patricia Coleman, Commandant of the Marine Corps. I wanted to personally thank you for your service and your words today, but I'm also calling with a question. We need someone to lead a new training program, teaching urban combat medical evacuation, someone who's been there, who knows the cost. Interested? Rachel looked at the 12 Marines in her apartment, planning their week of construction work. Thought about all the young Marines who would face similar situations in the future. Yes, ma'am. I'm interested. Excellent. Report to Quantico in 2 weeks. And Martinez, that limp doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you. It shows you understand the price. After she hung up, Danny asked, Good news? New mission, Rachel said. Teaching the next generation how to bring everyone home. The 12 Marines smiled. Their staff sergeant was back in the fight, just in a different way. That night, Rachel Martinez sat on her porch watching the stars over Texas. The same stars she'd watched in Afghanistan. But now they didn't remind her of war and loss. They reminded her of possibility, of 12 futures that continued because of 30 seconds of decision. Her leg hurt. It would always hurt. But pain was just another form of reminder, a reminder that she'd chosen others over herself, that when the moment came she hadn't hesitated. The Navy Cross sat on the table beside her, catching the moonlight. Tomorrow she'd put it away with her other medals. They were part of her story, but they didn't define her. What defined her was simpler. She was a Marine. She'd brought her people home. And now, she had new Marines to train, new lives to save, new futures to protect. The girl from Millbrook with the limp had become something more. Not a hero, not a symbol. Just a Marine who understood that courage isn't the absence of fear or pain, it's continuing forward despite both. Brad Thompson would serve his time and maybe find redemption. The veteran houses would be built. The lucky dozen would go on to live full lives, have children, pursue dreams, and Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez would teach the next generation a simple truth. Sometimes the smallest step forward, taken on a damaged leg through enemy fire, can change everything. Sometimes all it takes is someone willing to limp into hell to drag others back to safety. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just wear Marine Corps dress blues and refuse to leave anyone behind.